Wonderful. All right. So welcome to the Spotlight on the Stands Campfire Chat. So the reason we've decided to put this one together is that we have quite a lot of ladies who are interested in joining us in either Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan or in Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. Some are not sure which to do. Some ladies are booked on both. Some just have some general questions or maybe just like to join us on a monthly basis, which is all very welcomed. And so I'll just continue to let a few people in. So we're going to kick off today with a couple of guest speakers. So yeah, if any questions around housekeeping, just let me know. So essentially, if you need to have any questions, just pop it into the chat and we will get to them at the end. So firstly, we've got why did we decide to do this one? So in my experience as a booking manager for these destinations, the stands, Central Asia in general can be, maybe somewhere that people are a bit hesitant to visit. They don't know a lot about it, and there's news articles and whatever it might be. So we really want to sort of change that perspective because, it's just not the case. And I'm sure you'll hear that from our previous guest shortly. Pippa, would you mind? I don't know if you can... can't tell who's off mute, but I'll try and see. How can I mute? Sorry, everybody. I'm just trying to work out how I can mute everyone. But if you're not on mute, maybe just pop yourself on mute. That would be wonderful. All right. So first, we are going to speak with Luca. And so Luca is part of our on-ground team, and we've been working in conjunction with him for years. He's a very good friend of Matt, our owner. They just spent a few days together. So he's going to share a little bit about his role on the ground, his experience with Camino Women. He's actually been joined by Aisha tonight, which is really great. So Aisha is going to be our guest in Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan next year. Then we also will have Maddie. So bottom left is Maddie. You'll had conversations with Maddie over email before. She is our absolute wizard behind the scenes, and she's just come back from a trip doing all 5 of the stands as a female traveller. She's going to share a little bit about her experience. And then we've got Danelle, who's in the top in the middle. So she, as I say, has travelled with us earlier this year, first Camino Women experience. So she's going to, and we'll talk with her a little bit further down the chat. So Luca, do you want to come off mute, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, what it's like working with groups in Camino Women, and any general info about the area would be fantastic.
Yeah, hello everybody. It's very nice to meet you. So it's been a pleasure for me to work with Leatherback Travel and with Camino Women in particular for the last few years. I am from Switzerland myself, but my wife is from Kyrgyzstan, so I have some connection to Kyrgyzstan in particular and to the wider region. And I have been organizing tours locally in Central Asia for the last 10 years. And it's becoming more and more popular, rightfully so. It's such a beautiful area, and for the mountains especially, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, they are just amazing. I've been to all these places myself several times. Coming from Switzerland, I love mountains, and I'm quite spoiled with mountains here. But it's a bit different in Central Asia. It's much more wild nature, and also the culture there is very, very different, obviously. And people are super nice. Mostly, people go there for the mountains, but they really fall in love with the people, because the people there, they are so welcoming, so interested and curious about travelers from around the world. They don't really speak English, but we have wonderful guides who can connect you to the local people. So yeah, we've been organizing the Tajikistan-Uzbekistan trip for Camino Women for the last couple of years. And now we are very excited to start the Kyrgyzstan-Kazakhstan trip as well. I mean, I have organized this trip many times already, and people love it. Similar trips. But for Camino Women, it's a bit special because of this focus on women and on the interaction with local people. We have some special feeling projects along the way, some special activities planned. So it's really a wonderful trip. I'm so excited. I can't wait to do it. And yeah, so that's just maybe a little bit about me.
Amazing. And Aisha, are you there as well to do a bit quick introduction and how are you feeling about taking the first Camino Women group through Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan?
So, hi everyone, I'm happy to see you. I will hopefully be your guide for the community trip in the upcoming year in Kyrgyzstan. I am from Kyrgyzstan. I am 24, I'm going to turn 25 years old, and I've been doing tour guiding, mostly active guiding, for the last 3 years. And the itinerary I just went through, I love the activities on the way. It's a good mixture of the culture of the nomads and the trekking. What's mostly appealing for the others, like the nature of Kyrgyzstan and the mountains of Tian Shan. And there's a good like mixture of like activity and then little break for culture type, and then going back to hiking. So in my experience, most of my travelers were about 60 to 70 years old. So we know the right tempo, we know how to help them. And sometimes people find that our mountains are very high, like about 3,000 meters and above. But we have in the beginning couple of days of acclimatization to get to know the surroundings and get comfortable with the climate around, and then slowly we will start the active parts. And for every day we have the backup plans just in case. And we have the support. Our staff is also trained. We know how to help to give the first aid. So feel safe on that side. As far as I know, I would be, if it takes place, I would be running the Kyrgyzstan part only. Is that right, Luca?
Actually, if you look at the itinerary, it's mostly Kyrgyzstan. There's just a day transfer to Almaty in the very end. And then departure, and then we have a city tour in Almaty as well. So you don't have to, so the idea here is that we don't have to return again back to Bishkek, but we will see another city in the end, a little bit of Kazakhstan, but it's Kyrgyzstan for the most part. And you would be actually leading them until Almaty, until the end, because there's no point to have a separate guide for the Kazakhstan part. We will just have a separate guide for Almaty city, for the city tour, additional, but you would be with the group for the entire time, from the beginning to the end, Aisha. And as I know, you've been guiding in Almaty as well, in Kazakhstan as well, so you know that road very well to Almaty.
Yeah, we did run a lot of combination tours of Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan. Great. Most of the activities would be in Kyrgyzstan, and it's a pleasure to finalize everything in a big megapolis of Almaty.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes it easier to either head on into Dushanbe for the next trip or get yourselves home as well. So, well, it's just lovely to meet you, Aisha. Thank you for sharing all of that about how you manage potential altitude sickness should it arise. All right, so these are the two trips. We still have availability as well. Both we've got two Tajikistan and Uzbekistan departures next year, and one for the Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan. So you can reach out if you are keen to secure your spot. Next, we're going to hear from lovely Maddie. So Maddie, do you want to come off mute and tell us about your recent trip across the Silk Road?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, guys. I'm Maddie. You probably have seen my name in the bottom of a lot of your emails because I work in the ops team for Camino. So I do a lot of the email-based communication. So if you get to hear her lovely voice on the phone, but you don't often get to hear mine. So now's my chance. So first of all, just a little bit of a background of me. I have worked with Camino Women for about 2.5 years, so part of the furniture now, and absolutely love it. Everything about it is awesome. I have quite a background in travel as well, so in the industry and also just traveling. I've done a lot of that myself, so a lot of backpacking and also group tours, generally small group adventure tours. That's kind of where I like to spend most of my time. So earlier this year, in August actually, so not that long ago, I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to go to the 5 stands. So I thought I might as well do them all while I'm there. And so I did a trip that started in Turkmenistan and then went its way through, and I finished in Kyrgyzstan. So it was amazing, and I got to see all of them and the differences between all of them. I know that we have some other people speaking about some other places, so I'm going to stick mainly to the Kazakh-Kyrgyz kind of area in what I'm going to be talking about. But basically, the synopsis was absolutely brilliant. Loved it, breathtaking, like just stunning everywhere. Even if you're in like the middle of the desert, it was beautiful. Like it was just always really pretty, really cool things to see. And some of the things that surprised me were like how kind the people were. That was the main takeaway that I had. And regardless of where I was across any of those countries, and I don't necessarily look like I'm a local, so I stand out a little bit, but still absolutely greeted with open arms no matter where I went. I never, like literally never once felt unsafe. And that says a lot about just the general vibe of a place. So even when we would go, finish our day's activities and we'd have like an evening free, I'd go for a walk around outside the hotel on my own, and it was absolutely fine. Like never was feeling like, just that little feeling of, oh, I'm not super sure about this area. I never had that in any of these places, which to be honest, I was a little bit expecting it in some of the places, but yeah, never felt that at all, which was amazing. And actually the opposite, I felt just so comfortable being able to do that, being able to just know that people were able to help me. They were really, really open to giving directions and things, because you'll get to know Google Maps is not as helpful as it is in other places in the world, because it is still such a developing place. There's all the restaurants and places that you want to go see aren't necessarily on Google Maps. So if you Google Map places, it's not that helpful. So you actually have to go and talk to the locals, and they are always super helpful and very, very kind. And as Lucas said, English isn't necessarily always prevalent, but that's just the fun of it. And they were always really willing to help, even if they couldn't speak a scrap of English. And so as soon as I would say I come from Australia, there was just always that, oh, kangaroo, and I'm like, yeah everywhere. So that was always really cool. So they were very interested in where I was from, very interested in what I was doing, was I traveling around there. So yeah, I absolutely loved that. The scenery changed quite a bit from starting in Turkmenistan and then going Uzbekistan, Tajikistan. It was very, very dry, obviously, desert, hot as all heck, and like just, yeah, very like arid, I guess. And then when you started to go into like literally as soon as I crossed the border from Kazakhstan into Kyrgyzstan, I don't know if they do this on purpose, but there was literally a line, and it was like the border from Kazakhstan is dry, Kyrgyzstan is green. I was like, what has happened? It's so specific. Kyrgyzstan is just so lush. And it was described to me by a few people, and maybe Lucas started this rumor, who knows, but it was described to me as the Switzerland of Central Asia, Kyrgyzstan, because it's just so mountainous and lush. The rest of it is mountainous and stunning mountains, but it's not lush as it is in Kyrgyzstan. So that was a difference there that I found, and it was really nice contrast to see that. That was really, really cool. And then, Sophie, if you go to the next slide, I think you'll be able to see some of my little photos that I've got.
Sorry, Maz, I was totally mesmerized. I forgot I actually have a role to be doing here.
No, you're right. I was like, oh, I'm going to be talking about the eagle. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I had a photo of that. I managed to have some of the most spectacular experiences. And even though I didn't do the specific departures that you guys will be doing or are thinking of doing, I went to the same places and had very similar experiences. So you can see on the left, Golden Eagle. I got to see a Golden Eagle demonstration, hold one for about 30 seconds because they are so heavy. And the respect that I had for those eagle trainers is holding them up. My God, they are buff men, little, small men, but very, very strong. And yeah, that was a spectacular experience I had. You've got the mountains there with the beautiful lake, Isikul in the background on the right, just stunning. And as I say, just no matter where you look, it is beautiful and like photo worthy, which is tricky because you can't take a photo of literally everything. But it's just that you just can soak it in. And coming from Australia, which I know a lot of you guys probably would be, we just don't have mountains that take up like a whole portion of the horizon, which I find just spectacular. It just sets such a different atmosphere within the soul. I find it makes you feel like you're part of something much, much, much bigger. And in these mountains and in these places, that's definitely the feeling that I was getting. If you go to the next one, so I did these ones. You can see a little bit more there. We've got a mati in the middle. So yeah, again, beautiful like history in buildings. They've done an incredible job of restorations in a lot of these places. I was incredibly impressed with how they've restored things in a way that is still like it doesn't take away the authenticity, which I was very, very impressed with. And then on the left, we've got the Charan Canyon, which I'm probably completely butchering the name, so sorry, locals. Said to be like a small Grand Canyon, but as someone that hasn't been to the Grand Canyon and always wanted to, this was damn spectacular. And that was something that I absolutely loved. Again, hot as heck. So take as much sunscreen as you can fit in your bag. But yeah, that was awesome. And then as well, the felt making, the felt rug making, such a cool experience. I'm a little crafty generally at home, so I've done a little bit of felt stuff, but just the process that they used and how proud they were and excited they were to show us how they were doing it. Absolutely loved that experience. That was so cool. So yeah, I want to be able to talk about it forever, and if I've got the ear of someone that allows me to talk about it forever, I absolutely would. But a couple of little just super handy hints that I thought I would mention as well. If you're going, I would definitely recommend getting an eSIM. Helped heaps for me when I was there, and you don't have to worry about having a physical SIM. eSIM, the company that I used was Bamboo SIM. There's a lot of companies out there that use them. I found that it didn't work in Turkmenistan and Tajikistan, which was quite common amongst most of the carriers, but it worked really well in Uzbekistan and Kazakh and Kyrgyz. So that was just something to keep in mind. Again, when you're in the middle of the mountains, it doesn't work just like anywhere, but it works everywhere else. Cash, take a lot of US cash in kind of small ish notes would be good. Like anywhere, clean new notes. It is definitely possible to find ATMs, but I found sometimes the ATMs were either not working, didn't like my card, or were out of money or something. That was rare, so it was generally possible to get cash, but it's also really good to have a stash of US particularly. That's the best conversion over there. And then my last point was power adapters. Definitely take a universal power adapter. There was multiple hotel rooms that I stayed in that had like literally 3 different power adapters, like power points in the room for like different destinations in the one hotel room. They were just covering all bases. So just take a universal one and you'll be fine. You'll be able to use everything everywhere. But yeah, I'll wrap it up with that, Soph.
Oh, you're amazing. Thank you so much. And yes, obviously Mads is amazing behind the scenes. We love working with you, Mads, and thanks for sharing all about your adventure. But yeah, any questions for Mads, maybe just keep hold of him and we'll ask. And then at the end, so next we have Danelle. So Danelle traveled with us earlier in the year, and she started in Uzbekistan, did the week-long cultural tour, and then into the Tajikistan mountains. Melanie also is here. And so Danelle, I will also get to the screen with your lovely pictures. But yeah, tell us a little bit about you and like, you know, what made you decide on this? Because I know you were tying it up and you were even a little bit hesitant about booking this trip, if I hope you don't mind me saying, but yeah, tell us about how that worked, you know, from start to finish.
So I did the trip back in August and September. Oh, first of all, hi everyone, I'm Danelle. And thank you for Camino Women for organising these amazing chats, but also the amazing walks. It's just opened my eyes up to realise that you can travel the world even on your own on your own as a woman. So it's very well, I found the Camino Women were very well organised. From the moment we got off the plane in Tashkent in Uzbekistan, we were looked after. We could just be like little minions and we didn't even have to think. I think as a mum myself and a wife and I work full time, it was just so nice to have 3 weeks of not thinking of what I'm going to eat, what the rest of the family's going to eat. There was no cooking, no cleaning. It was so well organised and refreshing to go on a trip that I didn't have to plan and organise. So thank you, Sophie and the Camino team for organising that. So I went with my friend. We're both turning 50 and trying to decide where to go. We wanted to go on a walk together and we walk a lot. Went for Geraldton in WA. No mountains in sight in Geraldton. I think the highest elevation we've got is like 150 metres and it's not even, I think you can drive most of the way up. So we had not a lot of prep, unfortunately. I really wish, we thought we were relatively fit, but there's nothing like walking mountains. It's a different kind of fitness, I think. But we survived. We were really unsure about where to go because obviously Camino have a lot of options. I think why we decided Uzbekistan and Tajikistan at the end of the day was, and we went back and forth to Sophie so many times just checking, but we wanted somewhere that wasn't touristy. We wanted somewhere that was untouched. And we didn't want to wait in queues and lines with 150 other tourists just to get an ice cream or, you know, whatever, just to experience it. And I think that was one of the best parts of it for us is there weren't tourists everywhere. When we were in the mountains in Tajikistan, we rarely seen, while we were walking on the track, it wasn't like we were passing, you know, 10 different people every 5 minutes. It was pretty quiet, it made the experience 1,000 times better. It was just so remarkably untouched. It wasn't overcrowded, and I think if that's what you're looking for in a trip, this trip would definitely be for you. Another thing that I loved so much about it was the people, and I know that Maddie has already talked about it, but the people are just so beautiful. They were so welcoming and they were so kind to us. But what really showed was how they interacted with each other. They were so kind to one another. Like, you know, if you can be traveling out through Europe and you can hear them, or other places anywhere in the world that are really over touristy and they're under pressure, maybe sometimes they're not talking to each other as nicely, but they spoke to each other so nicely. And it was really nice to see their religion. Obviously they pray a lot, so I suppose that's a form of meditation for them. Like, they're very calm, beautiful people. Even when the traffic was nuts in Dushanbe at the end, they're just so calm. Like, there wasn't road rage like you would have in other places. So I just can't speak highly enough of the people, and that come from Botur, from Shana and our other guides, but also our donkey handlers were just the most beautiful people, and they were doing anything for us. I just, like, as you can see in that photo, they set up the little afternoon tea for us, and they just ran around after us and packed our tents up after us and did so. They were just amazing. They just made the holiday. There was no negativity. They wanted to make the holiday amazing for us. So yeah, the absolute, if you're looking for an untouched place to go with the most beautiful people, I highly recommend it. What else was I going to say? The trekking was definitely the highlight for me. The first part of the trip was a lot of culture, which was really beautiful. It was a really nice way to start it. Probably I could have done with a day less, but of the cultural stuff. But that's purely me and my experience. And I probably wish I did a little bit more reading, on the differences between what a mosque was to how do I say it? The madrasa and a mausoleum. Like, I wasn't like Batur was rattling off all these names, and he lost me a few times. Anyway, I bought a book to read up on it, but I wish I did a little bit of pre-reading prior-hand to really understand a little bit more of the cultural stuff. But absolutely amazing. Uzbekistan was beautiful. The trekking in the mountains was by far my highlights. So you can obviously tell from the photos that I sent through to Sophie, they are all in the mountains in Tajikistan, because it was just absolutely beautiful. It was dry, it was hot, the rocks were loose. Obviously there's a couple of photos there with a bit of greenery, but that wasn't common. It was definitely more dry and rocky and sandy. Yeah. And if I had some tips, I was going to say something like Maddie said too about the money. Don't take any Australian dollars. It's pretty much just US dollars only. We thought that even if we took some Australian dollars, we could change it at a money changer, but it was pretty much just US dollars only. Try to do a bit of reading before you go. And if you are going on this trip, take some more casual clothes. A few of the ladies said they wish they had some more casual clothes for Uzbekistan when they were going out for dinner and just doing more of the sightseeing. A lot of the people had only really taken clothes for trekking. And just, I would make sure that you fit enough, because it's really important, because it can be hard on you. You might be embarrassed that you're holding the group up, or you might, it's hard. It was for me, and I thought I was relatively fit. It was definitely a little bit harder than I thought. But I'd love for some questions, because I feel like I could talk about it for ages. But if there's any specific questions that anyone has got about the trip, I'm happy to answer. Or is there anything you feel like I've missed something, Sophie?
Oh, you did amazing. But yeah, ladies, feel free to start popping your hands up, and I'll get through your questions wise. I guess one big thing I'd be really interested to hear from you, because I do remember the first time we spoke, and you and Gemma, like hesitant, going, oh, look, is it safe to travel? How, in that regard, did you also, like Maddie said, do you feel that the preconceptions that you had were unmatched at all, or do you feel that actually no, that's just not how it was once I got there?
We definitely felt safe the entire time. I didn't feel once I was nervous or worried about anything or looking over my shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
I think too, because the people don't come across as aggressive between each other. It just didn't seem to be. And I'm sure there is the crime, but we certainly weren't exposed to it.
Yeah.
No, I've definitely felt safe.
Great.
And I still, it's very arid. It's very dry. It's not, obviously there's some beautiful spots in the mountains, but it's definitely, when you're flying into Tashkent, you're like, oh, wow. It's definitely not flying into some stunning place in Europe, or like Tasmania or Switzerland or something like that. And that made it even more exciting. It was very different. It was beautiful.
Yeah, different to a lot of other places. All right, Julie, come on down. So Julie, yes, well, you've been interested in this trip for a little while. So yeah, what would you like to ask?
I think you're on mute, Julie.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, hi Danielle, great to hear your recollections from that trip. I was booked in it for myself, but I had a bit of an accident earlier in the year and a few other things going on, so I had to dip out. But it's just like when this trip came up with the two, all four of those stands, the two separate trips, I just thought, oh, it's so tempting. But even though I also feel like I'm fairly fit, I've been continuing to do the weight training, but I've got some experience, like walking in Wilson's Prom and hiking in the UK, but that's quite a long time ago now. So I haven't done multi-day hikes for quite some time, and I'm really nervous about. Well, I'm a bit older than 50. I would be 68 by the time this trip was.
Well, I was the
around.
youngest in the group, so
Right.
and the older ladies, they were the fittest. They were the ones that were smashing goals, and just, I think we kind of broke off into three groups, like the fit, experienced hikers that had been walking and training more for mountains, and the middle groups that were just fit but maybe not mountain fit, and then there was four at the back that were kind of maybe unwell or not as fit or like to walk at a slower pace. So we kind of naturally just organically broke up into groups. But if I was to do it again, I would go to because where I live there's no mountains, so I'd go to probably the gym and go to a personal trainer and say I need a plan for climbing mountains, because another one of the ladies did that and it paid off. Like, she worked really hard. Or there's nothing to prepare you unless you're like Mel, who had just come from Switzerland and been climbing mountains, who was like a mountain goat, just zoomed up these mountains. I was like, okay, but you know what, it's just one step in front of the other. As long as you're fit and you're doing your strength training and your cardio, you just get fitter and fitter by the day, and it's just one step after the other.
And did anybody have altitude sickness at all?
I got it in the last 24 hours, and I
Right.
feel like a few other people were getting like the odd headache, maybe two or three, and I'd probably say 4 or 5 were taking the altitude sickness tablets. But yeah, I woke up on the very last morning and I thought, oh, I feel like I've been drinking, and we didn't. There was no real alcohol on the trip, and it was hard to get, to be honest. We tried and we found it in some spots if we felt like a wine with dinner or whatever. It definitely wasn't easy to get, but I felt like I'd been drinking and had a hangover. Just felt really nauseous, but there was nowhere to go, and I didn't want to. There's just nowhere to go. You had to keep going. But it's really, really tricky. One of the ladies got it on the very first day, and we hadn't even gone that high. So I think most people could monitor it and deal with it with Panadol and Nurofen, just some pain relief for the headaches. But the nausea just kicked in at the last day for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
Oh,
sorry.
You go, Julie. Keep going.
And people recovered from the altitude sickness?
Yes, very quickly. Yeah.
Carry on.
When you tend to come down, you can feel it, the headaches and the pressure and the nausea kind of going.
Yeah. So nobody had to leave the trek because of altitude sickness? No.
Not for altitude sickness, no.
Okay.
All right, and but they're all really great questions, and staying hydrated is really key, and that's what's sometimes quite hard because it's just so dry and so hot that you are quickly becoming dehydrated. So one thing to help with your altitude or to prevent it is to be well ahead of your hydration. So starting with that first thing in the morning. So there's ways you can prepare yourself. As Danelle said, there's some people are more susceptible than others.
And that's probably something that happened, Sophie. I woke up and I was feeling a bit off, and when I was feeling off, I wasn't drinking much water, so then it just made the problem worse.
Yeah, totally. Oh,
Yeah.
that's understandable though.
Yeah.
So Shelley, you're next up, and yeah, what have you got?
Hi. Sorry, Danielle, I cut out before a bit, so you may have mentioned this, but in regards to your day pack that you carry, how heavy is that, and sort of what sort of things did you have in it? Because I understand we have a separate pack that is carried for us. So if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yep. So the day pack that you carry on the trek, it pretty much just had a few of your snacks in, but you didn't really need to take much because they gave you snacks. They gave you like dried fruit and nuts. But most people had a few lollies and maybe some muesli bars or food that they prefer to eat on the track themselves. But you did carry all of your own water. So depending on how much water you drink, I tend to drink a lot of water. So I think I carried about 3 to 4 litres. I had a camel pack with a 3 litre 3 litre bladder in it. Plus we had like a water filter. I had one that I got from like paddy pullens that you could fill up in the creeks as you were going in the flowing water. That filters the water, so we were keeping the water up. So probably about 4 litres of water, your snacks. Depending on how cold it was, you also had like maybe a jumper. And then you had your poles. Most people, I would say, had a 25 litre backpack. Some people's were a little bit bigger, so it was just snacks, spare clothes, sunscreen, and a little first aid kind of kit. Mel might be able to jump in and say what else she had in her day pack. Mel's the trooper. She's the hiker. You're on mute, Mel. Mel, I don't know if you can hear, but you're on mute. Oh, she can't hear. I'll write it in the.
I think she'll come good in a minute. It's like she's fiddling. Yeah, Mel actually was really great because she came back and gave us like what she packed. You know, she's an incredibly experienced hiker, traveler, and yeah, she provided a bit more of an up-to-date. Well, what she took and was helpful, and so we'll use that going forward as well. So you'll end up with like a really accurate packing list. But yeah, I hope Mel can come off mute because I'd actually really love to hear from her because she did Mount Kilimanjaro, isn't it? This is. Yeah.
And Mel traveled really light. She was definitely a really lightweight traveler. We probably put a little bit more in our backpacks, but we tend to, I don't know, you tend to use it. I had a backpack, then I had a little bum bag because while you're walking, if I want to get a quick photo, it's really easy just to nip into your bum bag and pull that out. Oh, you're off mute. Yay.
Finally, I figured out how to unmute myself. I've been pressing every button possible. Hi, Danielle.
Hi, Mel.
Yeah, I originally put my hand up because I was going to jump in, but Danielle did answer it. You can get fit enough, I think, by going to the gym. Karen, who was on our trip, basically she didn't do any altitude climbing whatsoever, but she did get a personal workout to get her fit for the trip, and she went to the gym 3 times doing weights and twice doing cardio, I think, every week, and then she'd do a short walk on the weekend, and she was up there at the front and she walked brilliantly the whole trip. So better maybe if you can go to the mountains, but you don't need to. And I was going to say, for the altitude sickness, I have done a lot of hiking. I've done a lot of hiking at heights. The way we did it, which is the opposite way around to next year's trip, I think that first day was very, very tricky. There was a lot of altitude gain in that first day, not all walking. Some, like we went one day on the bus climbing, and the next day we had to climb about 1,000 meters. So there was a lot of altitude gain in a very short time, the way we did it. And I think people actually did brilliantly considering how much altitude they had to take on in those first 2 days. But I think next year's it's going to be somewhat easier at the beginning with the altitude, so I wouldn't worry too much about the altitude. If you go slowly, you're gradually building up your resistance to the altitude anyway, normally. And you never know. There's no set rule about how high you go and how bad you feel. Everybody's different. Some people might be fine on one trekking trip, and then the next trekking trip they might not be. So you just have to really, I guess. But in my pack, well, I was a bit different because I'd come off a 2-week trip to Switzerland where I was carrying everything. So I was literally very basic in my everything I packed. And on my day pack, I didn't take as much water as most people, I'd say, but that was also due to me being acclimatized to not needing as much. I took a warm jumper. The first day we were told to pack our raincoats. Second day I took that out, never put it back in again. We didn't see any rain. And I don't think I took even any snacks after the first day because we were given them. Sunscreen, yes. I had a little towel that I sat on because it's quite rocky everywhere you stop. And I found that was good for keeping my trousers less dusty. Very, very dusty trip. And I don't really remember what else I had in my pack, to be honest. I don't think there was much else because it was a very small pack that I had as a day pack. Because I had to stuff it into my big backpack when I was doing my 2-week trip prior in Switzerland. So yeah, I kept it really, really basic. Sun hat, I suppose that was the only other one. Oh, I did have a warm hat and I did have gloves, and I did use them on occasion when we got to the very top, and it could be very chilly. There could be a wind every now and again at the top. So yeah, it's good to pack some warm gear as well. But that's probably all I've got to say. Danielle's done a very good synopsis.
But definitely the gym. I wish I did that. Gemma and I, we just walked, and we might have walked for 4 or 5 hours, but it wasn't enough altitude, and we should have gone and got a gym program. If you don't have mountains, definitely go to the gym.
And the other question I get asked a lot are, what are the camping conditions like? Being in the tent, sharing a tent to yourself, toilets,
Good question.
The tent's fine. It's the donkeys that's the issue. But Danelle loved her donkeys.
I love my donkeys so much. I loved the donkeys. The donkeys, for me, they made it. So I, being a donkey lover, would say share a tent, because the donkeys have got to carry all of that weight or get more donkeys so they're not overloaded, because it's really tough climbing conditions. And some of the donkeys slipped. Not one of ours, but another donkey walked past that was overloaded and slipped, because it's really, you can see in that bottom right photo, the gradient, that kind of shows a little bit of it. But the donkeys, they are carrying a lot of stuff. So the tents are small. I remember one night Gemma and I hopped in, and we couldn't really move around that much, and we hadn't zipped it up, and we just got the giggles and started laughing, because we're like, how do we get here? How do we pay for this trip where we hadn't washed, we were dirty, it was dust up your nose, it was very, very dirty, but it just made it all more the better. But the toilet tent, so back to the tents, I suppose you can do a single tent if you want, and I'll give them my time again, I probably would, but because it was Gemma, my friend, it didn't matter. They are small, but the toilet tent, everybody shares a toilet tent. They just literally dig a hole in the ground, and you just go in one after the other and go to the toilet.
I did not use the toilet tent very much at all. I went behind a rock. I would never go in that toilet tent, let me say, if I could avoid it.
It was comical. We all bonded over the toilet tent. It created lots of laughs. One day, Jen's the first lady sitting in the other photo down the bottom. Yeah, that's Jen. She went into the toilet, and then it was kind of the time of the night where the donkey handlers were rounding up the donkeys for the night to tie them up. And the donkey got caught in the ropes of the toilet tent. Jen was in the toilet tent with obviously her pants down. Thankfully, the toilet tent didn't blow over, but I didn't get pulled over. But Jen's like yelling out, I'm in here. The donkey's caught up in the toilet tent. Anyway, we definitely bonded over and had some laughs over the condition of the toilet tent. But it just makes it all more the special, right?
Absolutely. Well, that's brilliant. I actually didn't know that story, so it's really funny to hear that.
I was videoing the donkeys because the donkeys were getting really quite noisy. They obviously could tell that was time to be rounded up, and they're really noisy. So I wanted to capture that noise
Yeah.
because they are really noisy at night.
Mm. Yeah.
And then I just happened to video that, I happened to capture that Jen was in the toilet at the time.
Have to send it. Oh, well, that's amazing insight from everyone, and thank you all for contributing. Before we go, is there any other questions that anyone has, or if you like either watching the recording or just think of something later, feel free to email it through. I'll ask who can help me out. But as you can see, an amazing trip. It always gets amazing reviews. The biggest thing, I guess, is just preparation, training. It's a trip that's easily underestimated. It's a combination of the steep and rocky terrain, it's the altitude, it's sleeping, like you say, being dirty, dust up your nose, all these things that do add to the mental challenge, I guess.
Yeah.
Shelley, have you got a question before we go?
Yeah, sorry. Do you recommend hiking boots, or are really good sneakers okay?
Well, looking back now, I'd probably get a really good sneaker. So I had both, but I only took my hiking boots. I felt like the hiking boots for me, and this is only personally for me, a little bit heavy. I would have liked the lighter weight, because it's really like the incline and the decline as well. There was a lot of loose rocks, so I just would have liked to feel a little bit more under my feet.
Yeah.
But I know Mel wears the joggers too, which
I wore
was
trail
envious.
shoes, and I always do. And bizarrely, my roommate, who I was put with, the first day she unpacked her suitcase, and I went, "Are those your shoes?" And she went, "Yes." I went, "I've got exactly the same ones," but she had never worn hers, and she had hiking boots as well. So she wore boots for maybe half the trekking. And then I said, "Why don't you try the trail runners one day?" And she never went back to her boots. She liked them so much more because they were so much lighter. So it's a personal choice, I'd say, but I would always go with the lighter boots if you're doing a lot of climbing and a lot of trekking. And you're not in snow. I think you might want proper boots,
and
but it's up to the individual what they're used to and what's comfortable to them, I think, as well.
It wasn't wet, like we needed all waterproof, and it wasn't freezing. So I would, a good trail jogger, that was something I wish I'd changed, which I wish I took. But all in all, honest to God, it'll be a trip that stays with you forever. The memories of the Uzbekistan, the Tajikistan people were just so beautiful. But for me, it was being with the other 11 women. It was the bonding that we had as a group, and looking after each other and hearing everybody's stories. And there was a lot of people had gone through a lot of stuff. It was just women supporting women. Sorry, Loka, I know you're not a woman, but it was just something pretty empowering about. I could have been anywhere in the world, right? But being with those other 11 women at that time in my life was bloody amazing, and I freaking loved every minute of it. And we were go, go, go. There was no downtime. I think twice in the whole 3 weeks we might have got 2 hours of free time. Other than that, we were up. They were, Shana and that on the track would say to us, "Okay, we're leaving tomorrow at 6 a.m. You're going to wake up at 5 o'clock. You've got to wrap up your sleeping mat, your sleeping bag, and have your duffel bag at the front of your tent by 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock's breakfast, and then we're on the trek." Like, we were setting alarms, and it was go, go, go. We were getting organised and doing what we had to do. Then you get in at the end of the day. They have afternoon tea for you, which is sometimes literally you don't go to these places for the food, right? Sometimes they just open up a tin of pineapple and a packet of biscuits, and there's your afternoon tea. So it was then pretty much you are knackered and you kind of go to bed, and then you do it all again the next day. And even when we're in Uzbekistan, on the cultural side of things, we were busy all day. There was not much downtime at all. And but we didn't have to think. All we had to do was get up and we'd say, "Where do we need to be?" I mean, Batur even ordered our dinner for us. It was just amazing. We didn't have to think about what we wanted. And I know that a few of the ladies were vegetarian. That was, maybe Mel, you might want to comment on that, because I feel like if you are a vegetarian in these countries, you may want to take some protein powder or some protein snacks.
I was I'm pescatarian actually, but I did find in Uzbekistan the food I thought was very dull and wasn't great. It was very samey for the vegetarians. All the meat eating ladies would get these fantastic skewers of meat at every restaurant, and we would basically get vegetable skewers and rice at pretty much every single meal we went to. So I did actually say to Sophie on about day 3, hey, I'm not getting any protein here. And actually after that, we did get a few more lentil soups and things like that. But I would suggest taking some protein bars and protein powders if you're vegetarian and want a bit more protein, or you're used to a bit more protein. Surprisingly, actually, in Tajikistan, in the mountains, I thought the food was excellent.
Oh, so good.
Our chef was brilliant. We called him the king of soups. He made an amazing soup every evening, plus a sort of main dish after that as well. And I loved the food that we had in the mountains, probably far more than the restaurants we went to in Uzbekistan. But yeah, there we go.
That's brilliant. And just while I've got you there, Mel, what out of interest, what brand of trail shoe do you use?
I was wearing Hoka Torrents for that trail. And I actually have just bought another pair of Hoka Torrents. They're not one of their current shoes. I know Amanda, who was my roommate, she actually gave her pair to our guide at the end of the trip. I needed mine for another couple of days after we finished the trip. And she then went and bought another pair. She got the last pair, I think, that was available in Australia in her size. So I couldn't say that you're going to find the Torrents online, but I'd recommend Hoka. Hoka Speed Goats are another really good trail shoe that a lot of people I know who do through hikes use. So yeah, but I've used other brands as well over the years.
I actually wore a lot of the Hokas before we went, and I was deciding whether to take both pairs as well. But in the end, I thought I'd just take my boots, but I wished I had my Hokas as well.
Yeah, I use my Hokas. I do have hiking boots, but you're right, like the waterproof, they're great, but they're just, I thought they'd be good in terms of ankle support, because some people got that like loose rock underfoot, so there's potential for injury. So the ankle support is something I usually recommend. But if you're not planning on taking boots, then just maybe like devise your training towards strengthening like your muscles around your knees and ankles, just to make sure that you're arriving and prevent injury that way. Aisha?
I just wanted to add something on top of the shoes on my side in Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan part. In Kyrgyzstan, it's going to be like middle of August. And this year, my experience was that we had a lot of rainy days. So waterproof shoes would be perfect to take with you. Mostly what we did is that you would have trekking shoes for the trekking part. And then after we arrived to the tents, they would change their shoes to the regular sneakers. So it's more comfortable to move around. And we also would suggest to take a bit of a rubber sandals or some light open shoes, because sometimes we need to cross the rivers on foot. So these are the 3 pairs that I would recommend taking with you.
I'm just going to butt in there and say I swam in the lakes in my Hokas. They pretty much dried overnight. They might have been a bit damp. And the only other shoe I had actually were flip-flops. So I had to use whatever I had available. I didn't have any other shoes whatsoever. But I survived. And I'm not a huge fan of waterproof shoes. Some people are. I think they make my feet really sweaty inside, but I don't mind my feet getting a bit wet. So I might be different to most people who hike. Anyway, that's my thoughts.
What was it like swimming in, alpine lakes like that?
They were cold. But well, myself and another Kiwi lady, in fact Danielle and Gemma also went in for most of the lakes from my memories, but yeah, a few of us were more keen than the others, shall we say, and would stay in a bit longer. But the last 2 were absolutely freezing, and it really was a 10-second dunk just to kind of wash the dust away and say, okay, I've been in that lake. But I absolutely loved, in fact, my favorite ever wild swimming was swimming in Kalikalan Lake. underneath a glacier, and I swam in that lake for about 20 minutes. And I will always remember that one afternoon for the rest of my life, because it was absolutely stunning, beautiful place. We stopped for lunch, and then you had this lake, and as I say, this glacier hanging up above you. It was just gorgeous. Yeah,
Definitely a highlight was the swims in the lakes. Yeah, and it was hot, so you could handle the cold water.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds amazing. Marilyn just put in there about wool socks ? Look at, yeah, merino is a really great fabric, I find personally. The toe socks as well. I'm trying to think of the brand. I think it begins with an
Creepers.
I.
There's creepers, or there's the Indigi.
Thinking of, yeah, I find them pretty good. But anything that can dry out overnight, and I think that'll be a good helps against blisters anyway. I know that I'm a easy to blister kind of person, so yeah, anything that helps in that regard. But look, that was just so lovely to hear all of your experiences. Love to hear from you guys tomorrow. If you're keen to ask more questions, please do. But thank you, everybody, but especially you guys, for sharing a lot about your experience. Really appreciate your time today, tonight, this morning, wherever you are in the world. And there'll be people watching the replay. So thank you so much. And take care. Have a lovely rest of your day.
Thanks, Sophie.
Thanks, Sophie.
See you, Mel. Bye,
Good
Danelle.
seeing you,
Bye,
Mel.
Danielle. Nice to see you.
Thank you.